inshallah, we start. Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu sallam wa barak ala Nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam tasliman kathira. We'd like to welcome you all to the second session of the headache series. And it is with collaboration between Oman Family Medicine Society, Dakhli Environment Healthcare Committee, and the Oman Neurology Society. And we are thankful for them for accepting to give this series, which is aims to highlight the early recognition and approach to diagnosis and management of common headaches, and also on the red flags on headaches, and also when to refer for second specialty after your initial management and the steps taken by you at primary healthcare setting. And the session, as usual, it goes for about 1 hour plus. Usually you'll get a talk between 30 to 40 minutes, sometimes to 50. And we'll keep, and the rest of time will be like Q&As. On your Zoom, you'll have like a both side in which we'll put some questions throughout the presentation, and we'd like you to be active and participate in them. And also you have Q&As. You can put your question throughout the presentation, like one question comes in your mind. You put it there in Q&As, and we'll reply to your questions by the end of the session. And this CME is recorded, and it will be on YouTube, inshallah, after the technical review. And we will share with you the presentation, which is going to be shared through your email, inshallah. Our today's session is with Dr. Sanjit. He is a neurologist consultant, and he's a fellowship in stroke and cerebral disease from Canada. He is a consultant neurologist at Khawla Hospital, and he's also a professor in neurology. He has almost like over 70 publications, books, chapters, and he is principal investigator in international clinical trials. And he's doing a lot of work in therapies, stroke in young people, venous thrombosis, etc. Dr. Arun, we are happy to have you with us today, and the ground, the floor, the air, the space is yours. Please start.
Thank you, Dr. Sakib. Let me first of all thank the organizer for inviting me for this talk. This is the second talk on headaches, primary headaches. So we'll just start off. So before we start, just some basic things. As all of you know that when you say somebody has a primary headache, it means that the headache is not associated with any other disease, and it's a disorder by itself. Whereas when you say secondary headache, it means usually there is an underlying condition which is causing this headache. And some of these conditions can be really serious ones, and if you don't diagnose, patient can go into problems. Now, what we should understand is rarely in a same patient, you can have two primary headaches occurring at the same time. For example, a patient might have migraine as well as another primary headache like a tension type headache. Also, what we should know is rarely a secondary headache can occur in a patient already known to have a primary headache. You may be following up this patient as a case of one of the primary headaches, and later on he can develop a secondary headache. So we should be always on the lookout for any new symptom which the patient is recruiting. And another important thing is sometimes the primary headache itself can be triggered off by a secondary headache. For example, a patient can get a minor trauma or a infection which can trigger off his primary headache. So what are the primary headaches? The first and foremost, we have migraine, which has been well covered by the previous talk on this platform. So today we'll be looking at the other primary headaches other than migraine, which is tension type headache. Then we have a group of headaches which is called the trigeminal autonomic cephalalgias. we'll be going through this in detail. And then we have some other headaches, some other primary headaches. Some of them can be brought on by some specific activity or by itself. So we'll be looking at some of these common primary headache which is seen in practice. Now, so we'll start off our talk by a case. So we have a 30-year-old lady who has no other comorbidities, who's presenting with headache since last few years. And now the headache is occurring almost every other day. So she has been to multiple doctors, many scans had been done. Neurological examination is totally normal. She has also gone to a ophthalmology consultant, ENT evaluation, orthopedics. She has even done a MRI of a cervical spine, which is all normal. So the question is, what do you think this patient is having? So these are the choices. So you can have multiple choice answers if you want. So we'll just give the audience some maybe 30 seconds and then we'll see.
So colleagues, you can see on your phones or laptops the questions, and you can answer by choosing one of the best answers.
Okay, so I think we have a very knowledgeable audience with us today. So most of you answered the question correctly. 77% correct. It shows that this patient is having a primary headache. So the next question will be, what in your clinical practice, which is the likely sorry, this is the same question. So which is the commonest primary headache you will see in your practice? So that's the next question. So you have these choices. So here you should choose only one answer. Okay, we shall proceed. So I think almost 30% has answered the as common migraine, which is not correct. So the commonest headache you will see in clinical practice is tension type headache. And in some series, it is almost as high as 70% of the primary headache. So migraine, even though we talk a lot about migraine, it's not the commonest primary headache you see, it's tension type headache. So again, one more question for this, the earlier patient who had seen. Now to go forward, what will you suggest? Will you, in any of these choices you can choose?
Here you can take more than one answer.
Yes. Okay, I think so. Some of you have answered that. Most of you have got the correct. That the first and most important thing is to take a detailed history. So we'll get back to the same question later on and see why history is the most important thing in any patient with headache. So now briefly coming to the primary headaches. So as I told you, these are the primary headaches, the migraine, tension type. So first we'll be looking at each of these headaches and then see, we'll get back to our patient later on. So first we have this tension type headache, as which as I told you is the commonest primary headache you'll see in your practice. So when should you consider a patient to have a tension type headache? So basically, this is a patient who will come and tell you, doctor, I've been having headache since the last few months. And when you ask him, other things like, is there a photophobia, phonophobia? Every answer will be negative. So this is some completely featureless headache. So there won't be any photophobia, no nausea, no vomiting, no throbbing nature to the headache. There won't be any aggravating or relieving features to this headache. So this is when you should suspect a patient to have a tension type headache. So now if you look at the International Headache Society, it has put up clear guidelines when you should be diagnosing this type of headache. So basically, any headache which lasts for more than 15 days a month on an average, or for more than 3 months a year, you can term it as a chronic headache. And these patients, the headache will be lasting for hours or days, or even it will be just continuing without break. And also the patient should have at least two of the following criteria. One, it is the bilateral location. So the patient will be having bilateral headache, which will be pressing in nature. Sorry. And it won't be pulsatile. That's the most important thing here. And it will be mild to moderate only in intensity. And it won't be aggravated by any physical activity like walking, climbing stairs, etc., which is more seen in migraine. And also the important thing is, as I told you, the patient, it is a featureless headache. There won't be any features like photophobia. If at all, you can have only photophobia and or mild nausea. Other than that, these patients will not have other features. So two are the features which will help you to diagnose this. One is the diurnal variation. So the patients with tension type headache, commonly you'll get a history that when they wake up in the morning, they're fresh, they're fine. And as the day progresses, slowly the headache will build up, and towards the evening, it will be really bad. So that is one clue from the history, and you should be asking this for all your patients. And the second clue is muscle stiffness or tenderness. So this you should be looking for, and as well as asking the patient. So what will happen is, these are the common areas where the patients will have tenderness and stiffness. One is in the frontalis muscle and the temporalis muscles. And also you will get the stiffness and tenderness in the masseters and also in the sternocleidomastoid and trapezius. So you should always try to examine the patient. You can use your index finger and your middle finger and slowly palpate these areas and ask the patient whether there is any tenderness by using small rotating movements with these two fingers. And especially if the patient is, at that time when you're seeing the patient is having headache, definitely you will be able to elicit these features. So the next question is, what is the best treatment available for these patients with tension type headache? So these are the choices. You can choose one of them. Okay, I think about 75% has voted. So there is almost a tie between amitriptyline. Yeah, most of them have got it correct. But a lot of people have chosen indomethacin and even flunarizine. So to understand the treatment better, we should understand the pathophysiology of this tension type headache. So here what's happening is, first you'll have something called an episodic tension type headache, which comes and goes. But it will be there for a few hours, but it will be coming and going. So at that time, what's happening is, there is continuous nociceptive input from the pericranial areas and the myofascial tissues into the brain. So the brain is sensing these painful stimuli. And if this continues, if this continuous nociceptive stimuli is continuing to the brain, what will happen is, something happens in the brain called central sensitization. So when this happens, this is a very crucial time in a patient's life with tension type headache. If this happens, what will happen is this episodic tension type headache will get converted into a chronic tension type headache. So what happens to this patients when there is central sensitization is, earlier he was having only the real nociceptive input was being sensed by the brain as pain. When this central sensitization happens, the stimuli, which is usually innocuous, also will get now sensed by the brain as some painful stimuli. So then he'll enter a chronic phase. So when you treat such patients with chronic tension type headache, you need to target both the central and the peripheral areas to make the patient better. So there has been a lot of studies which have looked at it, which is the best treatment for this type of chronic tension type headache. So what we have is only two treatments which is available, and the only drug which has been found to be useful in chronic TTH is amitriptyline. No other drug has found to be of any use. And the second thing, which is mainly targeting the central sensitization, is something called cognitive behavioral therapy. So what do you mean by cognitive behavioral therapy? So here the patients are taught to identify their thoughts, emotions, and beliefs, which they feel that these are the triggers or the generators of this chronic pain, and then to negate them. So basically you are giving the patient a feedback, and then the patient is working on the feedback to break the vicious cycle of the headache. So these are the two important things we should be aiming in these patients. Also, simple things like improving posture. So as I told earlier, the earliest trigger is from the muscles which is going into the brain. So sometimes the patient may be in their workplace or at home or something, they may be having an abnormal posture for some reason. So we should make sure that no posture is causing the continuous nociceptive stimuli to the brain. Also teaching them relaxation techniques, alternating cold and hot packs on those areas which is giving pain. And also ultrasound stimulation and electrical stimulation also has been found to be of use to break the cycle of this tension type headache. Things which is found to be of no use is botulinum toxin injection and acupuncture, which studies have shown is of no use in tension type headache. Now, so that is something about tension type headache. Now we'll go to the next group, that is the trigeminal autonomic cephalalgias. So this is a group of disorders which is, there are some 5 conditions which is clubbed together as trigeminal autonomic cephalalgias. And most of them look alike, but there is some small differences. And it's important to tease out these differences because treatment for each one is totally different. So what happens in these trigeminal autonomic cephalalgias? So here the trigger is not peripheral, it is actually central. So here what happens is we have this hypothalamus here. Sorry. So there is the first thing which happens is there is a activation of the posterior part of the hypothalamus. Okay, so when this happens, what happens is it sends signals through the ophthalmic division of the trigeminal nerve, and through the sphenopalatine ganglia, there is marked parasympathetic activity. So when this happens, you will get most of the symptoms that the patient will have. One is the blood vessels in the conjunctiva will vasodilate, and the patient will get a red eye. The eye will suddenly become red and will start tearing. And also the patient can have a nose block or stuffy nose, and also watering from that side of the head. So this is what happens when there is a sudden parasympathetic surge. The second thing which can happen is it will also release a lot of peptides which will cause pain, like calcitonin gene-related peptide and vasoactive intestinal peptide. So this is what gives the severe pain in all these trigeminal neuralgias. And also you can get, these patients can have something like a pseudo horniness. So here what happens is the sympathetics which is getting into the eye through the internal carotid artery, there'll be a lot of vasodilation occurring in that in the tunica adventitia, which will cause the sympathetic fibers to stretch, and this will cause meiosis and a ptosis in this patient. So these are the things which you will see in all these patients, the common features of the trigeminal autonomic cephalalgias. So the prototype of this group of disorder is what you call as cluster headache. So the cluster headache will get all these features. There'll be episodes of unilateral pain, mainly centered around the eye and the temporal region. That is the V1 distribution of the trigeminal nerve. In cluster headache, the main thing here is the headaches will come every alternate day or even daily, but not more than 5 times in a day. So that is one important thing you'll have to remember. And also these patients, they will have some very marked circadian rhythm. So they'll know like, okay, every day the headache will come on a specific time. So they'll know, they can even anticipate that, okay, I'm going to get my headache today at 4 o'clock in the evening. So that is another important feature. And the cluster headache is more common in males than in females. And another important thing is when the patient gets these headaches, they'll be markedly restless and agitated. They won't be able to sit in one place because it will be a real painful condition which will last anywhere from 15 minutes to around 3 hours. So this is the major features of this cluster headache. So why is it called cluster headache? Because these sort of headaches occur in clusters. That is, like patient will get headache every day for maybe 1 week or 2 weeks, and then there will be a big gap where they're totally fine. They may even forget that they had this headache, and then again this cluster will start. So that's why it's called clustering. So there'll be clustering of the headache, and the gap can be anywhere between weeks, months, or even years. But what we should remember is around 15% of these patients, the cluster won't stop. It will just continue. And if it persists for more than 3 months, then we call it a chronic cluster headache. Okay, so this happens in about 15% of these patients. Another thing what you should remember is you can have switching of sides. So last month, the patient got this cluster headache on the right side. And after 1 month or 2 months, he'll get again, and the next cluster will be on the left side. So this also can happen in 15%. It's called switching of sides in cluster headache. So like migraine, you also need to ask for triggers in cluster headache. And the commonest trigger which has been studied to give rise to this cluster is alcohol. So there will be a lot of studies which are looked at, because if you identify the trigger, you can avoid, because this really these are real painful headaches which the patient will do anything to get out. So, or there may be innocuous triggers like taking a hot shower or even watching TV can trigger these sort of clusters. So it's important to ask for any triggers in these patients. So the question now is, which of the following can be used for acute episodes of cluster headache? So the question is very specific. For a patient coming with acute episode, what will you use? So we have choices. You can have multiple answers. Can we have the questions on the screen? The question is specific for chronic acute episodes. I think that's good. I think most of the people have got it correct. But there are some answers like sumatriptan tablet and verapamil, which I'll just come to. So here, what we should be looking at is, this is for acute episodes. So acute cluster headache, we need to give them something which acts very quickly and then get rid of the headache. So the only treatment is only 3 choices we have. One is oxygen inhalation. And when we talk about oxygen inhalation, it is very specific. Like you should give them 100% oxygen at very high flow. You should give it at 10 to 12 liters per minute for at least for 15 minutes. Okay, so otherwise it may not work. You can give them oxygen at low flow and it won't work. Other two choices is sumatriptan or solmitriptan nasal spray, or even injectable sumatriptan, which can be given subcutaneously. So these are the only three options when a patient comes with the acute episode of cluster headache. And oral sumatriptan is not, it doesn't work at all in clusters. So you should be knowing that not to give oral sumatriptan. What about chronic clusters? Or so if you have a patient who comes, who has frequent episode, you need to divide this group into two. One is patients who has short bouts, like they're getting headache for maybe 2-3 weeks and then they're fine for next 6 months. So this group of patients, you don't need to put them on a long-term prophylaxis. You can get away with by giving like a tapering schedule of oral steroids, or you can give them IV steroids for first 1 or 2 days or even 5 days, and then have a tapering schedule of oral steroids. So you should know like how long the clusters are lasting and what is the duration of cluster-free period in between. Now there you can get patients with long bouts, like they can go on like every month they get 2 weeks clusters. So these are the patients you should think of starting long-term prophylaxis. And the best treatment here is to give them verapamil. And usually the verapamil you use is slightly higher than the dose you use for cardiac causes. You should start with a dose of 40 to 80 milligrams and slowly build up. And some patients might need even very high doses. So as you know, one of the side effects of verapamil is heart block. So always make sure you get a baseline ECG. And also before you hike up the dose, make sure you get another ECG. So making sure the patient is not likely to go in for a heart block. The other drug is lithium, which usually people try to avoid. So verapamil is the best drug for long-term prophylaxis. Also, in some patients who may not be good candidates for any of this, people have tried things like deep brain stimulation targeting the hypothalamus, because that is the trigger which gives these headaches, and also occipital nerve stimulation, where you implant a small electrode into the occipital nerve and then you have a implanted device which gives it stimulation. Now, there are some other trigeminal autonomic cephalalgias. We have 4 of them, and these are called little cousins of cluster headache. So all of them looks very similar to cluster headache. The only difference is in the duration of the episodes and the frequency of the headache. So we'll just go through this briefly. These are not very common. So the first is the paroxysmal hemicranias or hemicrania continua. If the paroxysms get continuous, it's called hemicrania continua. So here it is, the features are similar to cluster headache, but here the males are equally affected as females. And here you have the headache which is lasting only for up to half an hour. It won't last more than half an hour. Whereas as you saw, cluster headaches can last up to 3 hours. And also it will occur with a frequency of at least 5 per day. Whereas cluster, the maximum you can get is 8 per day or maybe once a day. But here definitely it will be around 5 per day. And the most important thing is this is a headache which responds dramatically to indomethacin. So it is also called indomethacin responsive headache. So this is a very, very important thing to bear in mind. So any patient with cluster headache who's not responding to anything, just give him 1 dose of indomethacin and see. So much so that there is something called the Indo test that is used as a diagnostic tool. So you can give an intramuscular injection of 50 milligram of indomethacin and see whether the patient is responding. If he is responding, that means it is not cluster, it is paroxysmal hemicrania. Or if you don't have injectable, you can even try oral indomethacin, especially the patients with who has gone into a hemicrania continua. You can initiate indomethacin from 25 milligram 3 times a day. Every week, you can slowly hike up the dose to 75 milligram 3 times a day. Once the patient is stable, you can step down to a smaller dose for long-term follow-up in these patients. The next is a very interesting but a rare headache called SUN-CT, which stands for short-lasting unilateral neuralgiform headache with conjunctival congestion and tearing. And a similar is what you call as SUNA, which is again short-lasting unilateral headache with autonomic symptoms. So this also has the features of cluster headache. The important thing here is the pain will be very, very sharp and very severe. It will be what you call as a piercing type of pain, which the patient will experience, or a stabbing type of pain. And this sort of headache will last for a very short time, only a few seconds. The maximum it can last is for almost 600 seconds. And it will occur with a high frequency. You can get even up to 200 episodes in a day. So that is when you suspect these patients to have this subset of trigeminal autonomic cephalalgias. And also another important clue is these patients can have what you call as cutaneous triggers, that you touch a particular area of the face, it can trigger off these headaches. And if you want to have a diagnosis of this sort of headache, the patient has to have at least 20 attacks, then only you can confirm that this patient is having SUN-CT type of trigeminal cephalalgia. It's very important again to differentiate this from the other types of trigeminal headache, because the treatment here is totally different. So you very rarely only you'll get a patient coming with the acute phase, because as I told you, the duration is very short, few seconds. By the time patient reaches your clinic or hospital, the headache would have subsided. But rarely a known patient who already has been diagnosed with this headache might come to you with severe episodes, and the treatment at that time is IV lignocaine. So this is the only drug which will help the patient to abort the headache. And as a preventive therapy, if a patient is getting continuous episodes, then you should try lamotrigine or other anticonvulsants like topiramate or gabapentin. So these are the treatment options. As you see, the treatment is totally different. Even the acute treatment as well as the preventive treatment is totally different from the other types. So I think this is a slide which will help you to differentiate between these the subgroups of trigeminal autonomic cephalalgia. So the main thing you have to look for is the duration of the attack and the frequency of the attack. So cluster, you have short frequency and long duration. As you move towards the SUN-CT and SUNA, you have attack frequency goes up, whereas your duration comes down. So you have to ask for duration and frequency in all patients who have unilateral headache, because as I told you, the treatment is totally different. There are some other primary headaches which is rare, but it's important to know about them. And some of them can be brought about by some specific action. So we'll just look at some of these common ones which you might see in your practice. One is called the hypnic headache, and this is one headache which usually occurs in elderly. Usually you see this headache only in patients who are above 60 years of age, even older, 84 and all that. So the classic history here will be the patient goes to sleep. After sleeping for a few hours, he wakes up with severe headache. And the headache will last for 15 to 30 minutes. After that, he might again go back to sleep only to wake up again with headache. So this keeps on repeating in the night. And some of these patients will know, like, okay, I'll sleep at 12 o'clock and I'm sure like I'll get a headache at 2 o'clock. So this is other name for this is alarm clock headache, because the patient can anticipate that he's going to get the headache. So whenever you see a patient like this, the main thing you should consider is, especially if the patient is a hypertensive, make sure that he is not getting blood pressure surges in the night. So the good way to do this will be to do a 24-hour BP recording and make sure there is no sudden surges of BP happening at night. And another thing which you should make sure that you're not missing out is obstructive sleep apnea, because this also can wake up the patient from sleep and obstructive sleep apnea can also cause headaches because of vasodilatation, hypoxia and vasodilatation. So these are the two things which you should not miss out before you label the patient as hypnic headache. Another headache, and if you have a patient who you are diagnosed, it's very simple to treat these patients. You can ask them to take 2 cups of coffee in the night, or if you have a caffeine tablet available, you can just give 60 milligram of caffeine tablet, or you can give either lithium in the night or verapamil, 160 milligram at bedtime. So this will take care of the headache and patient can get a good sleep. Another headache which you can see is something called nummular headache. So this is a patient. It's a very strange type of headache. You will see where the patient complains of headache only on one particular area of the scalp, and usually this will be around 6 centimeters in radius. That is why it's called nummular headache, like a coin-shaped area on the scalp, and the patient can have local sensory disturbance in that area. And patient might, like the classical history is, see doctor, I'm not able to comb my hair because whenever I'm touching that area, I'm getting pain. Whenever I'm having bath, when I'm touching that area, I'm getting pain. So this is the classical history you might get from the patient. So before you diagnose this, the main thing you should rule out is local causes. So you should examine the patient closely to see whether there is any skin pathology or underlying bone pathology. Because even if you do a CT, you can miss out anything on the skin or in the bone. You might have to ask for a bone window CT or even get a simple X-ray of the skull to make sure that you're not dealing with something bony. And the treatment here is simple. You can give amitriptyline or topiramate or valproate for these patients with nummular headache. Now, there are some headaches which can be brought out by specific action. So the common headaches in this group, one is called the primary sex headache. And so usually patient can have headache during sexual intercourse. But what you should be aware is there are 3 types of headache which can happen. One is a dull ache, which can slowly build up with sexual excitement. The second type is a sudden explosive headache when they have the orgasm. And the third is called the post-coital headache, which usually it's a postural headache. So the patient have orgasm, after a few minutes he tries to stand up or get up, suddenly he'll have headache with posture changes. This is very important when a patient has a history of sex-related headache to find out which of the 3 is having, because there is the second group, there is a high association with subarachnoid hemorrhage. And it's well known in literature that up to 15% of patients with subarachnoid hemorrhage can have the hemorrhage during sexual activity. So that is very important to differentiate what type of primary sex headache the patient is having. Now, if you diagnose this and you rule out all the other causes, you have to help the patient. So the good thing is that you can easily treat this sort of patients. One is you can give either indomethacin, small dose, 25 to 50 milligram, around 1 hour or 40 minutes before the sexual activity. Or if you have ergotamine available, you can give 1 milligram of ergot, which is not usually available nowadays. So these are the things you can use. Suppose this patient as every day is not getting relief with this treatment, then you'll have to think of prophylaxis. So prophylaxis can be either propranolol, which you usually use for migraine, or you can use diltiazem 60 milligram 3 times a day. So you can just start with simple things and then go up to diltiazem if patient is not settling. Next group, headaches which can come up with activities, something called the primary cough headache and primary exertional headache. This is very important. When you have a patient coming with these sort of headache, make sure your antenna is up, not to miss out things which can be serious. Because the patient may be having cerebral aneurysm, which will be causing these sort of headache. You can have something called Arnott-Chiari malformation, which is one of the CV junction anomaly, or the patient be having a tight carotid stenosis. So all of them can cause primary cough headache or a primary exertional headache. And another thing which can present with exertional headache is something called cardiac cephalalgia. So here what will happen is the patient may be having a underlying coronary artery disease, and when he exerts, instead of the pain on the chest, the pain can be getting referred to the head instead, and this is called cardiac cephalalgia, which is really a dangerous thing. So anybody with primary cough headache or primary exertional headache, be on your guard. You have to do a full thorough examination, and most of these things can get missed out on a CT or even an MRI. So you have to really probe the patient for any of these etiologies. So now coming back to our patient, I think most of you got the answer as a detailed history, but some of you told all of the above. So in neurology, as in any other field of medicine, you have to rely on your history. So if you want to have a diagnosis, so studies have shown that up to 95% of your diagnosis can be made on a good history, 94%, okay? If you add to this, if you add a good physical examination, you can add another 4%, so 98%. So your 98%, you are able to diagnose with a good history and a physical examination. And this is, the headaches are the classical example of this. Investigation will add only 2% to your diagnosis. So now, so any patient with headache, you can use this acronym called the Socrates. So this is an acronym which I think most of you will be knowing. So Socrates stands for, S stands for site, O onset, C for character, R for radiation, associations, time, exacerbation or relieving factors, and severity. So this is the Socrates acronym which you can use whenever you see a patient with a headache. So now just going back to what we learned. So first is site. Where exactly is the pain? So you have only 3 groups of headache to deal with. One is the tension type, which is the commonest. You have migraine, and you have the trigeminal headaches. So it's easy. Like, so tension type headache, it will be holocranial. It will be bilateral. Migraine, it will be unilateral. Trigeminals, it will be unilateral, but mainly centered on the V1 distribution, mainly centered around the eye. Next question is, when did it start? And was it continuous or constant, intermittent, etc.? So here you can easily make mistake. So patient will come and tell you, doctor, I've been having headache for the last 3 months. That's all. So, but don't stop there. Like, you have to go back and ask the patient, okay, you have been having continuous headache for 3 months, but before that, were you having intermittent headache? What were you totally fine? So that is very important to take what you call as a longitudinal history. So you have history which is cross-section. That is when the patient is coming to you, what he or she is telling you is what you call as a cross-sectional history. At the same time, you should probe and get a longitudinal history. So if you look at this, you will see that the chap who's having headache for the last 2 months may be a case of migraine was converted into a chronic migraine. So you should ask the patient, okay, so before 3 months, were you getting headache? What was the nature of the headache? So that is important. So this patient can be either a patient with a chronic migraine, migraine was converted to chronic migraine, or a episodic tension headache patient was converted into a chronic type of episodic tension type headache, or it can be a cluster patient who was converted into a chronic cluster. So unless you take a longitudinal history, you're going to miss out on your diagnosis. It's very, very important, and most of the time patient won't tell you this unless you ask specifically. The next important thing is the Socrates acronym is the character and the radiation of the headache. So here you have tension type headache, which will give you a pressing or tight feeling. Whereas in migraine, the classical history will be throbbing and it might radiate to the occipital region. And in trigeminal, it will be a really bad headache, burning, stabbing headache, mainly centered on the eye, and it might radiate into the eye or away from the eye. So that's the history you will get. The second thing is whether there is any associations like vomiting. So this is usually seen with migraine. You can have all sort of association with migraine. Whereas in tension type headache, no association. The only thing you might get is a diurnal variation. Whereas in trigeminal headaches, you will have marked autonomic symptoms. And the last is whether the patient is having, what are the other associated features. In migraine, as I told you, the patient wants to take rest. They want to be in a quiet, dark room resting. Whereas in tension type headache, they're not bothered. They can continue with their work with the headache and live a mild to moderate headache. Whereas in migraine, it's mild to severe. And in trigeminal headaches, the patient won't be sitting in any place. They'll be just restless. They'll be going to the bathroom, trying to take bath, trying to put something on their eye, etc. So this is one way to differentiate. Other important things which you should not miss out and you should take a history is the history of medications. So it's very important to take a detailed history of what all medications the patient had taken and what was their effect. So this not only will guide you, also will help you to make a diagnosis. One important thing is something called medication overuse headache, which I'm sure the next in the next talk, the speaker will be discussing this. It's a very important topic and it's a topic by itself, the medication overuse headache. The other thing you have to ask the patient is whether somebody has already given him indomethacin and what was the response of indomethacin and whether he has taken oxygen therapy. So as I told you, the important is not only getting the history, but you have to be specific. Like, so how much dose was given, oxygen inhalation, what was the, whether it was given in a proper way, it's all important. And also ask for, like in tension headache, you have to ask for tender spots. So you can ask the patient whether when you get the headache, when you're combing your hair or something, do you feel anywhere tenderness, which can also help you. And another important thing is in your patients, you can ask them to keep something called the headache diary. So there are a lot of forms available online. You can download one of them and ask the patient. So this will help you in the long run. So the patient himself will have to record like how, when he is getting the headache, what was the duration, what time he got, what was there any triggers, what did he eat or drink before that, all those things. So this will help you again to come to a concrete diagnosis of the headaches. Okay, so I'll just end now. Thank you. And I would recommend all of you to consult this International Headache Society criteria. So all of these, all the criteria for these headaches are given in that. So if you're interested, you can just, you don't need to memorize all of them. So whenever you're in doubt, you can just consult this criteria. It will give you guidelines. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor, for your talk. And it is like an eye-opener for some of the topics. And eye-opener is more for science, not for alcohol, of course. And so it is interesting because I mean like exertional headache, etc. Because we need to consider some client could be like one of the only designed to alert people to look for like AVM and other malformation for the clients, which could be like life-saving for people if you recognize and diagnose early. So when we had some questions, Doctor. From the clients, I mean, almost one question. I mean, do we understand that diagnosis of cluster headache is more of like exclusion?
Yeah. So to diagnose cluster headache, there is clear-cut criteria. So it's not a see, all the primary headaches are diagnosis of exclusion. So because diagnosis of exclusion, what you mean is you have to have a normal neurological examination. You should not be having anything else like high BP or something, and you should have a normal scan. So this is it. So your question is holds good for any of the primary headaches. So any of the primary headaches is a diagnosis of exclusion. Now in the primary headache, we need to know what is what, because treatment for each is different. That's what. So your question is. I hope I have answered your question, because all the primary headaches is a diagnosis of exclusion. You have to exclude secondary causes, then only you can diagnose a patient to have primary headaches.
In addition to a detailed, I mean, history.
Yeah. So you have to have a detailed history. You have first to diagnose a primary headache. You have to have a normal examination, normal scan. then you come to a conclusion of primary headache. Now you have to find out what primary headache this patient is having. You need to have a detailed history.
So by scan, you mean like any headache could, I mean like we are considering like a primary headache. Do we need to send for a CT scan or?
Yeah, so
MRI
if you have,
patient?
yeah, I think this is a very good question. And so when you will do a scan, so basically you just need suppose a patient is coming with headache for the last 3 years, and you know that he has all the symptoms of migraine or all the symptoms of tension type headache. All you need to do is a plain CT scan. Don't do MRI. All you need to do a plain CT scan for 2 reasons. This will, first of all, it will reassure the patient. The patient himself will be thinking, why nobody has done a scan most of the time. So for that, at least you can, so the patient is also convinced that nothing is wrong with him. We see every clinic, we see so many patients who've been sent for unnecessary MRIs. And the MRI will be reporting, the radiologist will be reporting something which he has seen on the, like a pituitary or something which is totally not connected with what the patient is having. And then the patient will be going around on a wild goose chase. The patient will get upset that there is something on the scan. The patient will be going to one doctor to the other, thinking that there is something wrong. So unnecessary MRIs, I think, is the biggest, harm you can do for your patients, because the patient will, and some of them will even report there is something like intracranial hypertension. Some of them might even land up getting a lumbar puncture. Patient might end up with a post-LP headache finally. So no unnecessary MRIs, please. I think that is one important message. If you're suspecting primary headache from the history examination, just do a plain CT and just stop it. You start the patient on treatment. I'll see how he is doing.
Great. And there's one question about how to differentiate, I mean, SUNA to cluster headache. I mean, are there any specific methods or from
to diagnose cluster
SUNA?
headache?
Yeah, from
SUNA. SUNA and cluster headache, the main difference will be, both will be unilateral headache. The cluster headache, the difference is in the frequency and the duration. So cluster headaches will come maybe once a day, or maximum it can come up to 8 times a day. Whereas SUNA, it can come multiple times. It can come even up to 200 times in a day, and it will be very short acting. Like it will last only for few seconds. Maximum it will last for few minutes. Whereas cluster headache, when it comes, it can last up to 3 hours. So these are the two main differentiating features from cluster headache and SUNA. And SUNA, as the name implies, there will be autonomic changes like flushing, conjunctival congestion, and mainly you see things centered around the eye. Whereas in cluster headache, again, you can see things around the eye. They'll be associated running nose, and which may be common for both. So main difference is in the frequency and the duration of the headache.
Yeah. What about the role of like hormonal change, like in migraine headache, cluster headache? I mean, like premenstrual tension, sometimes it happens. Is there any obvious role?
So usually you see menstruation related changes, frequency of the headache usually happening with migrainous headaches. And also you can get it in trigeminal autonomic cephalalgia, because as I was telling you, it is the area which is triggering it is the hypothalamus. So any endocrine changes can affect the hypothalamic region. So you can get menstruation related frequency, change in frequency or intensity with migraine as well as in trigeminal autonomic headaches.
Yeah. Doctor, in some primary healthcare, they don't have the triptans, the IV and other methods. I mean, they have mainly like NSAIDs and paracetamol. And with IV medication, what is the approach for primary healthcare, especially in acute headaches?
So acute headache, I think the one thing you can tell them is to, I mean, it depends on what you're dealing with. Yeah. If you're dealing with a patient with say tension type of headache, anyway, you don't need to give triptans. You just give them any NSAID. That will help. If you in migraine, the best thing is to tell them again, you can take NSAID. If you're giving paracetamol, you can ask them to take it with some caffeine, some coffee, which will help better than taking it plain. So again, it depends on what diagnosis you're making. Suppose a patient is having like a paroxysmal hemicrania, again, you'll have to introduce indomethacin. I'm sure indomethacin can be, may be available. So it depends on, again, what type of headache you're dealing. And only in migraine, you need to have triptans. Whereas in tension type headache, there is no role for triptans. You just need to use any NSAID.
Yeah. About the use of amitriptyline, I mean, the duration in tension type headache, and also in the, I mean, for how long they, nummular headache, for how long they could.
Yeah. So this is a very practical question. So what, as I told you, in chronic tension type headache, there is both central sensitization and the peripheral mechanism which is at work. So what you have to do is you have to introduce amitriptyline. You can start with say 12.5 milligram per day, slowly build it up, maybe to 25, maximum maybe 75 milligram, depending on how the patient is tolerating. In the next few months, what you have to do is you have to teach the patient what you call as behavioral therapy, which I was describing. So you tell them about posture, you tell them about the other methods like relaxation technique, massage, all those things. And then once the patient is stable on amitriptyline, whatever dose he is stable on, you can slowly try to taper the dose. If you suppose he is on 50, you make it 25. Once he is okay, you make it again 12.5, and then see and taper and see how he is tolerating the tapering. If he's fine, then we can stop the amitriptyline. Never stop it abruptly. I think that's the main point here. So don't stop it abruptly. The patient might take, it depends on each patient. Some patient might take 6 months, some patient might take 9 months, some patient might take 1.5 years. So the slow taper is what is important here.
Yeah, that's an interesting question about the post-viral headache. Post COVID-19 headaches. I mean, now people they're starting seeing these types of headache.
Yes.
Is there any classification, and could it be a chronic? And do we need to manage like with amitriptyline and tricyclics and other issues?
Yeah. Here? So here two issues about COVID-related headaches. Suppose a patient has COVID or just recovered from COVID and he has severe headache. I think the one thing which you should not miss out is cerebral venous thrombosis. So that is because, as you know, COVID is a hypercoagulable state. It can cause thrombosis anywhere. So CVT is one thing we should not miss out. So any patient with COVID, active COVID or recovered from COVID with severe headache, make sure you consider cerebral venous thrombosis, number one. The second thing is, as I told you, any of these, any viral infection or any infection can trigger off a primary headache. So if the patient is in the age group for a primary headache, this is something which can trigger off a primary headache. And then we'll have to see the pattern of the headache, how long it is lasting, and then treat it accordingly. But don't forget to rule out cerebral venous thrombosis. I think that's one important thing which all primary healthcare doctors should be aware of in the COVID situation.
Yeah, one of the questions which is like a worry, like to use in the treatment of headache and use of caffeine, I mean like 60 milligram. Will it cause like increase in blood pressure, etc.? I mean, this dose.
Yeah, I think that's an important practical question. It can cause surges in blood pressure, especially if the patient is on medications and multiple medication. So we have to make sure that the BP is not surging. Other thing is like for hypnic headache only we use migraine. So some patients, if you give them caffeine tablets, actually the sleep might get disturbed. So that's other practical problem with giving caffeine in the night. So, but we'll have to weigh the risk and benefit for those patients and then decide what to treat. Yeah, you're correct.
Thank you. And then about the, I think it could be, and it was answered in the talk, is the treatment of chronic tension type headache, is it the same as infrequent episodic type?
Yeah, so infrequent episodic type of tension type headache, you can just get away with by giving them NSAIDs. Whenever they get the headache, you just give them a short course of NSAID, 1 or 2 days, and get away. But if the patient has gone into a chronic phase, that is when you need amitriptyline. So any headache which is more than 3 months, that is the indication we have to introduce amitriptyline. So 3 months is the cutoff.
Yeah. And looking at the history, because the history could be like more than 3 months.
Yes.
I mean,
So anything more than 3 months, you'll have to consider chronic tension type
yeah.
headache.
Do we have like patients who are having headache, but I think the threshold could be lesser or higher than others? You know,
Yes, yes.
on this
Correct.
issue,
So,
because some people
yes,
they may have chronic headache, but they don't express it or don't say it, because sometimes like these people would come like AVM and other issues. I mean, like sometimes like mild to moderate headache, they don't express it more. I mean, so don't.
So most of these primary headaches, actually, as you told correctly, the threshold, the pain threshold is very low in all these patients, especially the ones with migraine. So that's why like anything can trigger migraine, because the pain threshold is very low. So that is one. The second thing is concerning AVM. So there's been a lot of studies which have looked at the use of searching for AVM and other structural things in patients with chronic headache. So what studies have shown it, if you take 1,000 patients, okay, with primary headaches and another 1,000 controls, there is not much of difference. If you extensively investigate these patients, I mean, you won't find a big difference. You can have instantly picked up AVMs. So anybody can have AVM. If you stand on the road and catch 100 people and scan them, one or two of them can have AVMs. But it doesn't mean that AVM is the cause for the headache. So there have been a lot of studies which I didn't have time, otherwise I'd have put up those slides. So that's why unnecessary scanning in a patient who you know it is a primary headache, it is only causing the patient to be more anxious. Like you will diagnose something which can be there, which is there in the general population. So that's the answer for that.
Yeah. So this question will bring us to another question. Do we need to make screening programs for headache, like we are screening for diabetic, etc., for depression? Do you think like headache is underdiagnosed, undermanaged? So we need to do like in our like primary healthcare, we do like screening, we do reflow, etc. For like, do we need to do some questions or questionnaires, quick questions for headache diagnosis?
So I think what we can do is, I don't think we need general population screening. So any patient coming with headache to the clinic, we should have a set questionnaire. Okay, yeah. So it will be like a simple thing, like, I mean, from the International Headache Society criteria, you can make small criteria. If the patient fits in this duration, everything is given in that. So then you know, okay, this patient fulfills the criteria for migraine. If the patient is having headache, no vomiting, no nausea, no photophobia, no nothing more than 3 months, okay, you know this patient is having most likely to have chronic tension headache. So all you need in those patients, just do a plain CT, start your treatment. So I think such small proformas will help in the long way. Usually what we do is, when the patient is waiting to see the doctor, you can just give them this questionnaire. So they themselves can fill up this questionnaire. When the patient comes into your clinic, you already have this. You just need to clarify some points. It will save time also. I think that can be a
way. And we expect that there are some applications or apps which can help us on the diagnosis. On the
so I don't think that you should put the apps for the patient, because they'll be unnecessarily searching the web and making things miserable for both themselves and the doctors. I think I think that's not the best thing to do.
Yeah.
With all the Google search and all going on.
Yeah, it's by itself. So I mean, the question is here about cocodamol or codeine use in the management of headache.
So codeine is one thing which you should avoid, because if you look at this medication overuse headache, I think the next speaker will be speaking about it, the secondary headache. So try to avoid codeine as much as possible, because that is one of the major causes for medication overuse headache. So I don't want to elaborate on that, because I'm sure the next speaker will be talking on this. So codeine, don't give codeine unnecessarily. Just try to control with the ordinary NSAIDs or paracetamol or caffeine.
Great. What about the use of, I think you have touched the use of relaxation techniques, physiotherapy.
Yes. So this is very, very important in chronic tension type headache. Physiotherapy is very important. The relaxation of the paraspinal muscles, the trapezius, those are important. And application of cold and hot packs is important. And also the posture, how you you keep your posture is important. So these are very important in tension type headache and not in other types of headaches. Only in tension type headache.
Yeah. Any role of like dry needling? I mean, they both like the physiotherapist, they may use sometimes dry needling.
No, acupuncture is not. Studies have shown that acupuncture is useless in tension type headache. No use.
Yeah, great. What about the, I mean, I think you have touched it quickly in the beginning about can we people have like two types of headaches
Yes.
at the same
So
time?
this is a very important thing because rarely a patient can have migraine and tension type headache. So this is a rare situation where sumatriptan can be useful, where you have acute exacerbation of migraine in a patient with underlying ongoing tension type headache. But the trick here is you should make sure that the patient realizes when he gets acute exacerbation that this is a situation where sumatriptan can be taken. So rarely you can get, you're correct, you can get patients with both two types of headaches, and the combination of migraine and tension type headache is seen in practice. So that's the only situation in tension type headache where sumatriptan triptans can be used. And you have to educate the patient very well when to use triptan and when to use NSAID.
Great. Which is comes to this the same issue about the use of amitriptyline and the I mean, like as we said, like the common headache is more of tension headache, and he says or she says about the if they face these cases and they don't respond to analgesics, can they go to like amitriptyline?
Yes, I think amitriptyline is a very good drug because it has got wide applicability both in migraine as well as in tension type headache. So I think that is one good drug which can be started in a peripheral hospital, which can be definitely, the patient will definitely find it useful because the most common type of headaches is getting covered by amitriptyline. If there is no contraindication like cardiac contraindications, definitely I think amitriptyline should be given as the first line drug in anybody with headache more than 3 months. That's a prophylaxis.
Yeah, thank you, doctor. I think we have relaxed your headache, or we are adding something in this beginning.
Very good. I think it's a nice thing. Hope it was useful.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Ambrof, for your kind time spent with us, and it is a fruitful, as I said, it like opened our eyes to some of the rare types of headache which we need to look at it also, seriously. And also the questions have been also highlighting some practical issues about the medication evaluation of headaches in the primary health care, and it is a fruitful session. I think people from their feedback, they like the topics, and it's opened some of the ideas for them at the primary healthcare level. And also like we may need to consider like a primary healthcare headache brief guideline or flow chart, so we can guide about medication use, etc. on the primary healthcare. Any words or final comments, Dr. Sanjit?
Yeah, I think one important thing is because the patient, you will be dealing with these patients more closely. I think, as I told you, the headache diary, I think that's one thing we should implement. You tell the patients just to keep a headache diary. So next time when the patient comes, you should bring it. So you'll know exactly what is happening, and it will give you a lot of information, triggers, duration, frequency, whether your medicine is working or not. So that's I think headache diary is something which should be tried in the general in practice. I think it's very useful.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Arun Sanjit, and
thank you.
And this session is almost be accredited, so you'll get like the attendees and of course speakers will get like credit hours. Like within 2 days, everybody will get the credits, and we'll put the talk and the presentation to your email, and inshallah within 2 days. And thank you, Prof, for your time with us, and
right.
we hope you can enjoy your time, inshallah, and Have a nice time, and let's say goodbye for all. And thank you, bro, for the talk.
Thank you.
Thank you and goodbye.
Bye.
Inshallah.
Thank you.